Grace Riggan and Joshua Bowles were not gardeners when they bought their 1930s house in an adjoining vacant lot in East Austin. Professionally an architect and build team, they planned to devote their spare time in restoring the house from their home workshop. But enticed by the large pecan trees on the disjointed, scruffled land, they found a new priority.
Definitely, the two sites didn't communicate real clearly together when we bought it. This was a vacant lot, and there was a house that was pushed back, and a driveway separated the two. So we had this big concrete barrier all the way down the length of the site. It was just on the ground, but it was a huge barrier, and it just divided everything in two.
And early on we made the decision to leave everything that we were going to build was going to stay on one side. The wood shop, the house, anything we built was going to stay on one side, and the other side we're going to keep it clean.
Like a park, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we thought back then.
Structure and purpose motivated their plantings. Dense understory shrubs and trees form one boundary of their grassy park. A stone wall and gates define the hot street boundary. A path invites entrance into pecan-dappled sanctuary along the house and patios. In a back corner shaft of sunlight, they carved an alcove beyond the shade. From it, they can step into their workshop behind a hand-planed screen.
Laying out the space sort of came natural to us because we worked with building space so much. It was just this kind of wanting to go out to a little quiet spot. So somehow the corners became places where we would sit. Now, this was before any plants were really there, so we started shaping the spaces based on where we would hang out, where we'd go out with a book and kind of sit and look. And then once you get to the corner, you start looking across and you start imagining what you might see, and the views develop, and you start planting things that way to where the place where you like to sit starts to just come alive all around you.
Oftentimes, when a house is built, you sort of have the house, and then whatever's left over after the house is built, people just call that the yard. And so we spend more time out here in the garden than in the house. So we really felt like we wanted to design the garden as if it was another, not a part of the house exactly, but just another part of our living environment.
But as novice gardeners, the only thing they knew was that they wanted to attract birds. As they tried out plants, they discovered a wider audience. Mentoring their botanical voyage was John Fairey of Peckerwood Garden.
It's the first place where I've had this experience of appreciating the beauty of a garden. One can go to an art museum and see a beautiful painting and have sort of that feeling that you're seeing something that's sublime, or a piece of music. And that's the first time I ever had that feeling in a garden was out at Peckerwood.
Grace and Joshua brought John's plant diversity to their street. They designed handmade gates for a dry stack wall, constructed over many seasons with reclaimed stones from their building sites.
It seemed like we would actually learn more about how to stack the rocks if they were dry stacked instead of just putting beds of mortar in between each one. And we did it so slowly because we had to haul all the rocks here, and then we didn't have room to pile up that many rocks out in the street and then lay them all. So we would bring them load by load. We poured a footer first, and then as we brought the rocks in, we'd do an area, and it might sit there for a few weeks, and we'd walk on top of it because it's probably 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet wide at the bottom. So we would do a part and then just kind of let it sit and make sure we'd walk on top of it. And that way we sort of tested it every step of the way, because people always ask us if that's safe, and it hasn't moved, and that was probably 6 years ago that we finished it. So.
And it requires a lot of patience. You have to be willing to place, you know, a rock that weighs 150 pounds, to place it, and if it's not right, you have to take it out and put it somewhere else. We learned a lot doing it. I think that's one thing we try and do with our work, is to challenge ourselves to learn about the nature of whatever material it is that we're working with. And so with the stone, I think patience is one of the things that stone will teach you.
Experimenting with plants also taught them patience. As gradually as their wall building, they gained confidence with each hole they dug.
When you make an architectural element, it tells you how to plant it.
The built elements are useful in framing views. For instance, we've built 2 gates that go through the wall, and that's useful for framing views and also giving you that sense of surprise where you see the gate and you open it, and suddenly you enter something unexpected.
Another view is from their meditation room, one of the corners overlooking the garden. One of their first renovations to the house, they built it with the essence of its intention, listening to the materials as they shaped reclaimed cypress with Japanese hand tools. By hand, Grace made the 400 mortise and tenon joints that frame the screens. They designed windows at sitting height to join together the garden and house in meditation.
It's kind of delightful to frame just a little something that you wouldn't otherwise perhaps see that way.
Another frame with an inside-out connection is their handcrafted moon window that at night casts its glow into the master bedroom.
And the window comes from the place too, because there was a tornado that pulled up a large mesquite tree at the neighbor diagonal behind us. And the mesquite tree had a naturally undulating form. It came out of the ground and turned, and then it went up, and then it turned again. And so we got the tree and took it to mill and have lots of boards, and they have this amazing grain pattern that's swirling. So we took the curving parts and made the curves of the window.
Their journey together in architecture, in all its renditions, has at its source generations of family farms and craftsmanship where inspiration began with the land.
I think that's one of the things we started thinking about when we were going to name our business. We do architecture and carpentry, and so we decided what better name than Home Place, because that's really what we like to create, and what we've tried to create here is just a sense of a place, of a strong sense of connection with the land, and of a special relationship with the land.